there and welcome to Beyond the Headlines. It's Monday evening and it's the place we normally are at discussing the hot button issues of the day. For the past few weeks, the hot button issue has been related to health and we will continue along that line this evening. First, let's introduce our panelists this evening. In studio, we have Dr. Satish Bidasi of St. George's University. He is a professor of public health and preventive medicine and the Associate Dean of Graduate Studies at St. George's University. Dr. Bidasi, it's good to have you.
Pleasant good evening. Good evening to your viewers who I am very confident are actually at home right now, judging from the lack of activity on the roads, which is a good thing. I would like to spend a special good evening to our very committed and competent healthcare workers as well in Grenada.
Very well. And we are joined on Skype by two officials of the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association, the President and Vice President. Mr. Jerry Rappaport, he's the President of the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association, and Mr. Ross Fielding, the Vice President. Gentlemen, welcome, and it's good that you can connect with us via technology.
Good evening.
And so one of the things that the buzzwords that we're hearing is that of social distancing. Yeah. So for people who are wondering why that side of the seat is as if, he's staying so far from me, it is in keeping with the protocols. And so we have to increasingly over the past couple of weeks utilize technology to have our guests join us. So first, the breaking news yesterday at midday, the Ministry of Health called an emergency press conference to announce that the first case of COVID-19 had been uncovered in Grenada. And so it seemed as though yesterday we changed the gear. So how high is that gear and where are we going, Dr. Bidasi?
Well, I understand that's an important aspect to discuss, but bearing in mind Grenada and the world at large has been on a high gear since essentially the beginning of this year. I can recall when the Caribbean Public Health Agency first broke news into the different regional islands as it relates to the public health significance of COVID-19. Governments, including Grenada, began to develop their strategy, their plans for the response for COVID-19. Now, with the onset of a confirmed case, and the idea is that confirmed case is not unexpected, it was inevitable. Previous to the confirmed case, our main focus was on preventing the entry of an imported case. Now that we have a confirmed case, it's now on focusing on ensuring that case is not progressed towards local transmission. So the gear that has now been placed is to really emphasize the strategies, which includes social distancing, as it relates to mitigating the impact of having a case locally and preventing the spread.
And so authorities have announced a series of measures to combat COVID-19. Do you think they're taking the right actions? And the actions that have been taken so far, do you think that's enough?
Well, the actions that have been proposed and then enforced are actions that are very consistent with the standards from the World Health Organization and protocols that have been proven and successful in regions in the world where we have had imported cases and outbreaks as well. The issue, however, is the compliance of these protocols and standards, and that will ultimately determine the effectiveness and success of our strategy to control any outbreak in Grenada.
And you mentioned compliance. A little later, we will take a look at some photographs. We've had a case in California where photographs have emerged of scores of people on the beach. We have parks in London where people are ignoring the regulations set by the government and are gathering. Here at home, we understand that although funerals have been listed as private, some people are still finding ways to have the happy hours. So those are things we are going to delve into. Sure. But I want to cross over to the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association and first go to Jerry. We would look at the economic impact on your business, but first, Dr. Bidasi has been talking about the whole issue of community transmission, and we had a case where a hotel was identified as one of the place where we had the first reported case coming out of Grenada going back to St. Lucia. So would you put into perspective for us the importance of the hotel sector, not just in terms of economics, but now you're looking at what this brought?
I'm having problems hearing you. The feed is very, very low on, I can barely hear what's going on.
Okay, so it looks as though we have a slight challenge, and we will have to go back to Jerry in a little bit. I think he seems to have a challenge in hearing us, and we'll go back to him. Is he there? Jerry, are you hearing me now?
Can you hear me?
Or let's see if we can cross to Russ. Russ, are you there? Okay, so we will have to cross back to Jerry and Russ in a little bit. All right, so Russ Fielding, Vice President, Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association, are you hearing me?
I'm here, yes.
Right,
Can you hear me?
Good, Russ, I'm seeing you now. So the Hotel and Tourism Association, we hear a lot about the importance of the tourism sector. And what has it been like for the industry when at least the first case that was traced back to Grenada emanated at a local hotel? Okay, so let's continue the conversation in studio. Dr. Badashi, so in Canada, for example, for every one case that has been confirmed, 5 is added. And put that in perspective in the Grenadian context. Should we be doing the same kinds of things that we've seen some of the international governments have been doing?
Well, Grenada have actually been adopting several of the strategies that international countries have actually been implementing, which includes regulating your borders. In fact, as we sit today, the airport, one of the main ports of entry, is no longer receiving commercial passengers. That's one aspect. Other aspect is that I believe that the population of Grenada is very much sensitized now to the whole aspect of COVID-19 at all age groups, at all segments of society. That level of awareness, sensitization, is quite significant in terms of informing our behavior collectively going forward as well.
Some people say we waited too long to close our borders. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I can appreciate that there's always a timing issue involved, and I am certain that at the end of COVID-19, there will be an end. While we're in it, and we think that this is an experience that we're not necessarily seeing the end point of this, COVID-19 will be gone. And at that particular point in time, I believe collectively we will be able to examine and review. But going forward, our borders are very much controlled. And from a timing perspective, we actually did a very good job in Grenada, even from the Caribbean context, in terms of even negating the entry of a case even at this particular point in time as well. So when we think about the global context and even the local and regional context, Grenada have actually been quite successful in resisting the entry of COVID-19, but it was inevitable. Now that it's here, it's just a matter of reinforcing several of the approaches that have already been put in place.
So for instance, when we look at the cases in the Caribbean, the commonality is these public health officials have largely been saying that these are imported cases. Why that string?
Yeah. So there is a distinction between imported cases and locally transmitted cases. An imported case indicates that the case did not originate from the country. That suggests that if you are able to identify that case early and potentially identify any contacts, trace them, and apply the relevant control measures, which mainly includes self-quarantine, then you can pretty much assure a very significant level of disease control. If it's local transmission, then there's a lot more people involved. Maybe in local transmission, you're unsure about where the original point of contact is. So there's a lot more variables involved in terms of even beginning to identify persons of interest and applying effective measures towards preventing any further spread. So the difference between imported and local means different strategies in terms of how we prevent and control.
And so you have been looking at the whole issue of self-quarantine. And listening to some of the feedback that we got on GBN's To The Point program in the last couple of days, especially this morning, people have been wondering, for instance, why wasn't it mandatory that people coming in were placed into self-quarantine or state-originated quarantine to ensure that we curb the potential for a spread?
Well, that's a very good question, and I know that from the perspective of whether it's recommended versus mandatory, there's a debate going on. I would imagine that collectively you trust the population enough by ensuring that they're fully aware of the significance of self-quarantine, as well as being able to provide the relevant facilities and infrastructure for it. The issue, however, is for the individual. Compromising my rights as an individual is a question, and governments are very much apprehensive about trespassing against individual rights. But at the same token, individual rights has its role, but then we also have the public good to balance as well. So it's a very sensitive balance, and governments are struggling in terms of how they strike that balance as well. It's not easy. It's not easy for anyone who is in this position, but ultimately for COVID-19 and diseases such as this, individuals have a role as a person and has an impact on the collective population as well. So that level of consciousness is important. Mandatory may come in. It's an option. And it's all dependent on how the population responds to essentially the gold standard, the recommended standard for self-quarantine.
Good. And we will make another attempt to go back to our panelists who are joining us via Skype, Russ Fielding and Mr. Jerry Rappaport, President and Vice President of the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association. Russ, are you hearing me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Right. So I think I'm hearing you, but I may have to ask my producers to turn up the volume in the studio. I think the speakers might need a little bit pumping up the volume here. Russ, as a hotelier, how concerned have you been about your property, let's say, and we have had no reports, let's make that abundantly clear, no reports that your property in one way or another has been a source of. But how concerned for you, and what measures have you been taking to limit exposure, say at True Blue Bay where you manage?
Well, about 2 to 3 weeks ago, we started training our staff with hygiene, personal hygiene, and hygiene around the property. We provided them with the various tools and training and education to be able to carry out those tasks. Cleaning surfaces, washing hands, and generally making sure that all the protocols are observed that the Ministry of Health recommended. We started that at least 2 weeks ago, and we've been reinforcing that on a daily basis. The most important thing, of course, is staff and employees' safety, and ultimately the safety of the people of Grenada. There's little more that we can do at this time, other than trying to persuade the population to adhere to these rules, which are very sane and sensible rules that the Ministry of Health has put in place.
Thank you so much. And Jerry, as far as the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association is concerned, what has been your protocols and how have you been lending a hand to your membership as they deal with this situation?
Can you please repeat that? I couldn't hear the last part of your question.
The role of the GHTA in steering your members through this crisis.
Okay, well, look, the interesting thing about this whole situation is that it's changing so rapidly daily. So it's required that we be flexible and adaptable and just try to get the information through to our members as quickly and make sure that the information that we're circulating is factual information and not rumors. I think it's really important that going forward, that what we're talking about is how we're going to advance and not spending time about what's transpired so far. because as we see from around the world, things are just rapidly deteriorating, and we knew sooner or later we were going to get COVID-19 in Grenada. The hotels, like Russ says, all of our members have been working with the staff to educate them for their own safety as well as the safety of the guests when we had guests and the safety of the property. And that's what we have to continue to do going forward. We have to be the source of information because most of the hoteliers, quite frankly, and other business owners are too busy dealing on the day-to-day front line of what's the reality of their business. So we as an organization have to be the source of the information from whether it's the CHTA, the CTO, the airlines, or whatever, so we can keep our properties and our staff and the few guests that are still on the island informed so they're making the right decisions. We've had a lot of today, for instance, most of the day was spent scrambling to try to get people onto flights because the Virgin flight early this morning, it wasn't sure that it was going to come in. Then we found out the flight was going to come in and it was going to take people out. So that's, the role. I mean, we have to work very closely with government and the rest of the private sector to just keep the channels of information going. I think what we saw, for instance, in the States is the failure on the part of the government, in particular the president, to present the reality to the people in an honest way. And you're seeing the consequences. So we need to make sure that our sector and the people in Grenada in general know the most and best information that's available at that moment in time, because it's constantly changing.
So, Jerry, for instance, what kind of rapport have you been having with your regional counterparts? News just coming to hand is that St. Lucia has declared a state of emergency as COVID-19 cases increased to 3. So what kind of collaboration has there been between or among the associations in the region in trying to develop a collective response?
Well, the way that we're trying to develop the response and coordinated response is not necessarily just through this immediate region, but using the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association and the Caribbean Tourism Organization, who have the staff and the resources to gather the most up-to-date information from throughout the region. I mean, if we have to start sitting there and making phone calls to each individual counterpart island to find out what's going on, we'll never get anything else accomplished. So it's great that in particular, the CHTA has been, constantly sending out emails with information and resource links so that hoteliers and other businesses in the sector can have the most up-to-date information. And that's what we have to rely on. That's why those organizations exist. Just like the same reason why the GHTA exists, quite frankly. I mean, we've heard from members who are not members anymore, who didn't think that they needed to be members, and now in a time of crisis are contacting the organization and looking for our assistance. And we're going to be there for them. We're dealing with people from Airbnbs, because now a lot of tourists in the island are in the Airbnb properties. We were getting phone calls today from people trying to figure out how they were getting back home. So, these are the kinds of roles that we as an NGO have to step up and do in these times.
Thank you so much. Dr. Beth, I saw your head, you kept nodding when he mentioned Airbnbs. I guess that point is resonating with you?
Well, the point that's resonating to me really is the fact that this is an integrated approach, because the issue of COVID-19 is not specific to any one sector of society. It's not a health issue only, it's an agricultural issue, it's a national security issue, it's a financial issue. So we're all coming together. And that is what essentially is required in an effective response. So I am very much heartened to learn and understand that all the different sectors are certainly on board with the similar message with regards to how we can collectively address this pandemic.
And out of St. Lucia, what we're reading is that Governor General Sir Neville Sinach Monday declared a state of emergency, saying that he is satisfied that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the coronavirus COVID-19. The House of Representatives will meet tomorrow, and Prime Minister Alan Chastanet is expected to outline the measures his administration will be taking to deal with the virus. The government had earlier announced the closure of the island's 2 airports to all incoming commercial and private flights effective 11:59. That's midnight tonight, as is the case in Grenada. All airports will be closed to all incoming passengers until Sunday, April the 5th. Aircraft facilitating departing passengers repatriating from St. Lucia will be permitted. Air cargo operations are permitted. It said the measure is part of efforts to contain the spread of the importation of new cases of COVID-19. The government has already closed schools, imposed travel restrictions, and scaled back non-essential services in an effort to contain the disease. This is kind of mirroring what we saw outlined in Grenada in the last couple of days.
Exactly, but I want to raise a point, though, that while we have seen these actions over the past couple of days and weeks, collectively we have been responding to COVID-19 now since the very start of this year. I can recall at St. George's University, our leadership at the university has been working very closely with the government in terms of preparing what are the potential plans, plan A, plan B, in the event of different types of activities. Colleagues of mine and our team at the Ministry of Health, we have been working on protocols, on strategies as it relates to contact tracing well in advance, even before it even emerged in the region as well. So this has been quite an exhausting experience to some extent, because COVID-19 is very much part and parcel of our daily lives. But at the same time, I'm very confident that we have been very much prepared for this eventuality.
And you mentioned that it has different stems. You said that it has issues related to national security, it has issues related to finance, it has issues related to agriculture. You want to expound on, let's say, agriculture a little bit?
Of course. So small island economies such as Grenada are dependent on a lot of importation of food products. Having said that, though, I believe that Grenada is quite filled with food supply. I mean, the fish, our vegetation, our fruits, for example, we actually have a pretty good supply. However, we need to probably ramp up that level of production to ensure that the food security is met. I can appreciate from the panic buying in the population response to some of the fears and concerns that a lot of persons would have been able to store a lot of food products, but that may have interfered with the distribution of products at the same time. So we do need to assure a sustainable supply of food products, and that is where agriculture, I believe, will also come in. Mango season is coming in very soon, so that's quite timely for us, and we need to really maximize our avenues to source locally sourced foods.
Okay. And you also said that it has issues for national security, which we'll come back to, but you also mentioned the financial impact. And the hotel industry is one of those I imagine that is best place to talk about is Russ. What kind of economic impact are we looking at for the tourism industry in Grenada as a result of COVID-19?
Oh, the impact will be absolutely massive. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, we've gone from a situation where we were having one of our best seasons on record, with 80, 85%, 90% occupancy, down to virtually zero. So our cash flow has gone from being healthy to absolutely disastrous. And most hotels will not be able to sustain their livelihood for, I would say, probably a month, maybe 2 months maximum, with their existing cash. And of course, if you're employing 100, 150 people, depending on the size of your hotel, you have to pay their wages or you have to let them go. And the problem is, if you let them go, you have to pay them severance. And that's, of course, a lot more, a very costly exercise. So the impact to the industry is absolutely, it's huge. Now, the government, with the Prime Minister's announcement on Friday, said that they were injecting $20 million into the hospitality sector, which is a welcome relief. However, it is really, and that's supposed to last for 3 months. It's really probably not going to be enough. And I think if the governments of the Eastern Caribbean are serious about tourism, then they'll have to come up with a little bit more money, because otherwise we will see businesses going under. And it's very distressing for both the business owners and the staff as well, because we really don't know where this is going. I would estimate that we're probably not going to see any business coming back for probably 2 months, maybe even longer. And your colleague in the studio may be able to enlighten us a little bit further on that. But this is, remember, this is not just happening in Grenada. This is a worldwide event. But we do rely very heavily on tourism in Grenada. And especially, you know, now that the students have gone home, there's 25% of our GDP. With no tourism here, that's another 25% of our GDP. Inevitably, it's going to have a massive impact on the economy of Grenada. However, at the end of the day, we have to look to means to make sure that our citizens stay safe. And I think what we've been doing so far as a country has been really excellent. I think we've reacted very well. What does concern me a little bit is that the message is not really getting out to the people of Grenada about social distancing, hand washing, and all the other protocols that we've been learning about. And that message really needs to get across to the populace.
So, let's call Jerry. Are you there, Jerry?
Yes, yeah, I'm here.
Right. So, Jerry, as far as the Hotel Association membership is concerned, are we to imagine tonight that all the hotels are empty, and those that probably have a 1 or 2% occupancy are people who are waiting on a flight out via Virgin Atlantic this week?
Yeah, Virgin Atlantic and Air Canada flights that are going to come in, I believe, this week. But yes, virtually the hotel sector is grinding to a halt.
And approximately how many workers are we looking at who will be placed on the breadline as a result of this?
What are the numbers that we ran were what, Russ? 4,000?
Between 4,000 and 5,000 direct employees.
So let's say on average 4,500 employees, Grenadian employees, will be on the breadline as a result of this. And what options do you have? Are you looking at keeping these workers on your payroll with the assistance that the government has promised, or will you be severing people and riding out the storm, and when the storm passes you'll re-employ? What are the approaches being considered?
Well, I can't really give you a definitive answer on that because we still don't know exactly what the government assistance is going to be in terms of payroll. So until we have more clear idea about that, we really can't. And as Russ referred to before, I think the other key thing that we're going to have to address, and not just in our sector but throughout the country, is this issue of severance. Now, you know, I think as this time calls creativity and thinking outside of the box. And I think one of the things that just off the top of my head, I think the government might want to consider is an easing of the severance rules so that if people are initially sent home because of this, there's no severance paid. And with the proviso that when things get going again and they're not re-employed, then severance would be dealt with at a later date. Because if all of the business start, like Russ said, start dealing with paying out severance, businesses that would not necessarily be going under in this current climate will probably end up going under. So I think we have to work with government and the unions and whoever else in the private sector to ensure that as many as the well-being of the employees is taken into account, as well as the well-being of the businesses. And the only way we're going to do that is by coming together and coming up with creative new ideas, because we literally have to rewrite the whole book. You know what I mean? We have never encountered anything like this before. When Ivan happened, we knew we got knocked down to the ground, but we knew we were going to be able to get back up. The rest of the world wasn't in the same place we are. This is, like Russ said, everybody's involved throughout the world. And the main issue is we don't know how long this is going to go on for. We would like to be optimistic and think 3 months. But I've read, you know, reports that say this could go on for 1.5 years. So it's impossible to really predict, and it's impossible to really, for us, again, back to the original, the gist of your question, which is we can't really give an answer to that until we have much clearer idea from the government what they are talking about in terms of assistance.
Thank you so much.
And
Russ, you wanted to pick up on one of the points he made?
Yeah, one thing that we need to emphasize is that most hotels have spent years developing their staff and training them and bringing them up to speed. And, you know, to lose those staff, those employees at this time is absolutely disastrous, because if we let them go and then try and start up again, rehiring and everything else, it just won't work. So we need to make every effort to make sure that we keep those staff employed for as long as we possibly can. And the only way we can do that is with a substantial government assistance. And I think it behoves the whole of the Eastern Caribbean to make sure that we maintain those employees. They are a very, very valuable asset to us, and we shouldn't just be casting them aside. We should be maintaining them, because we've invested a lot of money in those people, and they've invested a lot of their time and energy into our business as well.
So, Russ, I'm trying to imagine the industry, and one of the things that has come to mind is that you have the Royalton, which was on its way to an opening, and now this has happened. In the case of the Royalton, if you put your feet in their shoes, what do you think is happening there?
Oh my goodness! They had their soft opening on March the 1st. And, by March the 20th, they're closed again. Of course, they haven't got any liability in terms of their staff. They haven't spent years building their staff loyalty. So they're in a very, very different situation to us. I mean, they can close their doors with really very little liability at this particular time and reopen when things brighten up. So in many ways, they're in a much stronger position with this COVID-19 than the rest of us are. So, you ask a very pertinent question there, and and again, no easy answer. But for them, it's probably they've had to make the hard decision. I feel very sorry for those employees that have gone to work for the Royalton that came from other hotels, because they've given away their history with those hotels to go and work for a new hotel. And this COVID comes along and destroys their ambitions. It's very tough on everybody, very, very tough.
Thank you so much. This is Beyond the Headlines on GBN Television. This evening we're looking at COVID-19, looking at the impact from varying points of view. We have in studio with us Dr. Satish Sadi of Satish Videsi of St. George's University. And we have the President and Vice President of the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association, Mr. Russ Fielding, and Mr. Jerry Rappaport, via Skype. We will take a break and we'll be right back.
It's the big one. Grenada, imagine winning $25,000 and up to 6 times by scratching just one little ticket. Get your triple cash scratch tickets for a chance to live your best life. Win easy with Scratch. For just $3, match any of your numbers to any of the winning numbers and win the prize shown for that number. Reveal a money back symbol and win the prize instantly. Triple cash scratch in stores now. Must be 18 or older to play.
'Cause I'm a winner. From the moment that I get up, I'm feeling right.
Good evening, viewers and listeners. Welcome to the National Lotteries Authority's Lotto Draw number 3077 for today, Monday, March 23rd, 2020. I'm your draw hostess, Leslie Ann Johnson, supervising the draw, Ms. Josanne Clark, representing PKF Accountants and Business Advisors. So we're playing for $164,000 tonight. But of course, before we select our 5 winning numbers, we'll select the free ticket letter. So our free ticket letter is I as in ink. Check to see if it matches that on your ticket. If it does, of course, you can claim your free ticket at your outlet of purchase. So we'll now select tonight's 5 winning numbers for $164,000. Good luck to you. Go check your ticket for our first number is 2. The second number. The second number is 9. The third number. 5. The fourth number. That number is 16. And the fifth and final number. That number is 7. All right, so we'll just recap for your benefit, starting with the free ticket letter. That is I as in ink. And the 5 winning numbers for $164,000 are 202, 909, 505, 1616, and 707. If you are tonight's lucky winner, congratulations to you, of course. And just to let you know before we leave, our Super 6 sales and draws will be ceased until further notice. This action has become necessary due to the suspension of all non-essential services in our Super 6 central location, that is St. Lucia. All Super 6 tickets already purchased for future draws will be honored when the draws recommence. In the meantime, all other NLA lottery products are still available for purchase from all our lottery agents tri-island-wide. Thank you for supporting Sports Culture and Nation Building. Have a great night.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way. Super 6 a bigger jackpot game.
Now you love Super 6 even more. With more money to the jackpot galore. Play more, win more, have more fun. With more jackpot money, Super 6 is my number one. With the new and improved Super 6 game, jackpot keep growing and growing and growing.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way. Super 6 a bigger jackpot game. Super 6, bigger jackpots, more chances to win.
Conveniently located in the Grand Anne Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store.
Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair Grand Anse will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, you know. Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep.
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Total is one of the world's largest oil companies with a top quality line of lubricants. Total Lubricants has a full product line from passenger cars, motorcycle, heavy industrial equipment, mining, trucking, agriculture, and manufacturing machines and vehicles. Total Lubricants, winning championships in motorsports, including Formula One and World Rally Championships. Total Lubricants are available at all Rubis service stations, leading automotive shops, and distributed by Huggins.
Angie, don't you know that you should not fly kites near electrical poles and wires? You should only fly it in open areas. If the kite gets stuck, it can cause power outages throughout the village.
Then I'll just pull it down, Johnny. Simple?
No. You shouldn't do that. You can get shocked. You should call Grenlec at 237 and they will come and help.
Alright.
Never fly kites near the power lines. If a kite ever gets tangled, do not attempt to remove it on your own. A message from Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Why not stay in? Turn off the alarm clock. and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz. For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses. We're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
How going on, boy?
Hey, good old things.
Hey, Daisy.
Yeah.
Boy, in line, boy. Your house looking a real good day.
Boy, it's thanks to the hard-working and professional staff at the Housing Authority of Grenada. They handled me real nice. They did my plan, they did the construction, and I didn't even have to worry about a thing. They were there with me every step of the way, supervising the job, asking me about my concerns, giving me feedback as the house took shape. They were there from start to finish, and even put the keys in the palm of my hand. I give them an A++ for customer service.
Oh, it's people from housing bad, boy.
Boy, not bad. Excellent. If you're thinking about constructing your home, why not consult the Housing Authority of Grenada? You could visit them right down in the Sandino complex, or give them a call, 440-1015 or 440-1016. Or check out their website, hag473.com. They go handle you. They go jog your blocks, they go draw your plan, they go tote your materials. Hey man, where you going? The Housing Authority of Grenada is your choice for affordable housing and a stress-free construction experience.
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. This evening we continue to dissect issues related to COVID-19, which has turned the world on its head. In studio with me this evening, in case you're just joining us, Dr. Satish Vidasi of St. George's University. He is a professor of public health and preventive medicine. And we have via Skype with us two officials of Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association, the president, the Vice President, Mr. Russ Fielding, and the President, Mr. Jerry Rappaport. We have heard from them earlier and we'll continue the discourse with them. And one of the things we also like to do is to give context. So a short while ago, we did give an update coming out of St. Lucia, and I have just seen another update coming from our friend Milton Walker, who we had via Skype last week from Jamaica under the Disaster Management Act as of March 25th. All persons 75 and older must stay home for 14 days, will only be allowed to conduct the essentials of life. Conditions apply. All public sector workers 65 and above must work from home. Schools are to remain closed from the ending of the last order until after the Easter break. Every person entered in Jamaica as of March 18 must be in quarantine for 14 days. Gatherings in any place shall not exceed 10 persons. And that's the message coming from Prime Minister Andrew Holness coming out of Jamaica. We just had that information fed to us by Milton Walker. And if we look at the international scene, we have been scoring the globe to see what's been happening. I believe Italy, Dr. Vidasi, has been hardest hit. And we've looked at some of the frightening photos coming out of Italy, and the producers are going to assist us with some of the slides. As you look at it, what thoughts come to mind?
Well, my first thought is that those experiences are the reality in Italy. I mean, it's not our experience in Grenada, so we have to bear cognizance of that as well. But if we are unable to respond effectively to the COVID-19 outbreak, then we are actually projecting to have some type of adverse consequences, especially as it relates to our health and wellness as well. So certainly it's issues, it's pertinent to the conversation, but I am still quite confident that we are able to resist that level of reality from COVID-19.
And as we looked at those photographs coming out of Italy, we saw last week it was very dramatic, where we had the military trucks just driving along the street, and they contain the remains of people who would have died from COVID-19. And members of the media fraternity today, you know, we were put into a state of sadness. We had one of our colleagues from Zimbabwe. He was 30. I think he was Zoro Makwamba. And there he is in the prime of his life, and he died at the age of 30. He had some health challenges last year, and he had surgery, but he had gone to the United States to New York on the 29th of February for some medical attention and came back, and he returned with the virus, and the sad news came today. I mean, to look at somebody in the prime of their life, very prominent broadcaster, known to the people of Zimbabwe and to his fellow journalists around the world, and to have to report on you. So what is the message here? Some people seem to be taking this very callously, carrying on business as usual. Social distancing has been put in place. What thoughts you want to share with the public?
So the message that I am thinking of, that I would like all of us to embrace, is that we are all at risk. Now, while we mentioned that different age groups are more concerned, especially in terms of the complications, and I believe as well, based on some of the reports we've had in the past, especially since the initial outbreak of COVID-19, there's a tendency to consider only those that are elderly, only those with underlying conditions as those that are at risk. And while they are actually at risk, we are all at risk. And if we all think that way, we are all at risk, then we all need to take measures individually and as a population as a whole as well. That's the main message I would like to share with everyone, regardless of your age, regardless of your geographical location, whatever variables that you belong to, you are at risk.
And what I'm trying to find a phrase to see if we can get people to understand. Essential message you would like to get across with the whole policy of social distancing. And do we have a double-edged sword? Because we have businesses saying, okay, we are going to abide by the social distancing rule, but yet you have people today lining up outside of a supermarket awaiting their turn to go in. Can they really observe the social distancing guidelines that have been provided? Are we facing a quagmire?
Well, from where I am sitting, I believe that we're dealing with an enemy here, and the enemy is a virus. First of all, in order to conquer your enemy, you have to know your enemy. And if we know a virus is a microorganism. It exists in the environment. By itself, that coronavirus, that COVID-19 virus, will essentially die in the environment. That virus requires us to be biologically active, to replicate, to spread. Knowing that fact, the virus requires us. We can then turn that around. We can modulate, we can modify and put a check on the virus as it relates to our distance to prevent human-to-human transmission. And that's where social distancing comes in, where we're essentially breaking the cycle of the virus. And then it has been proven to actually begin to suppress cases and eventually lead to countries and regions now where they are not reporting new cases. That's the main focus I would like to emphasize on social distancing, to understand how viruses behave, and by behaving in a social distancing manner, we can actually ultimately conquer this virus.
We'd also like to remind our listeners and viewers that you can chime in on the conversation. The number you can call is 440-1252, 440-1252 if you have questions for our panelists. We are a small population, 100,000 people. And when you look at some of the charts that, some of the numbers, games that could be played, where do you think we might end this? What number do you think we may reach?
So having a small population could be a good and a bad thing, of course, because if the virus enters, it can potentially transmit very quickly as well. But also our population density is, comparably speaking, we are not as dense as some of those other countries and regions as well. So even the ability to move around the population is a bit confined. But that requires even more emphasis on the need for social distancing. We're small, so we're fairly close. And that way, it can transmit easily, but at the same time, we're not as dense. So it's sort of like a fine-edged sword. But we ultimately will determine the direction in which that will flow.
We will determine the direction, and some people have been behaving irresponsibly. We've heard Dr. Martin this morning saying that, you know, there's this thing people like to have a session. Everybody have a session around the corner. I've heard in your dear country where the pub is closed, we say the pub in London, but the bar is closed, but yet drinks are coming out through the window. God only knows how people get around these regulations. We've had Jamaica saying that the National Disaster Management Act is coming into play, and they've issued the first set of restrictions on people 75 and older, people 65 and in public service and those kinds of things. So Lucia has issued a state of emergency so that they can handle this. Do you think more drastic action is needed in Grenada?
Well, from what I am observing, the action is being reviewed and revised accordingly with time as well. But to put things in context, this idea of social distancing is very novel for us. Yes, we are in technology today. We have cell phones. We have essentially Facebook and social media, and that equates to some level of distance. But intrinsically, we are very social, and especially in particular in the Caribbean region as well. So this idea of social distancing is new for us in a sense. I think from a generation perspective, we have no memory or recall in terms of controlling globally significant diseases. We have had chikungunya, we've had Zika, we've had some Ebola challenges in the past, but that is I mean, it's similar, but it's not the same when compared to COVID-19. But having said that, the idea of social distancing really and truly requires for a level of consciousness, and that consciousness will come with knowledge and information, but ultimately I think we may move in the direction of enforcement.
Let's see if I can get quickly to Russ, and then we come to the phone line. We have a patient, a caller who has to be a little patient. It was Russ. The psychology of this, I'm sure you see it at your property every day with the way guests interact with each other and what is expected of staff interacting with guests. You want to chime in a little bit on Dr. Bedassi's point?
Oh, I think he's right on the money in every aspect that he said there, because getting staff to stay 6 feet away from each other is so difficult. Social distancing in the Caribbean and in Grenada is just it's converse to our nature. I mean, we had a staff meeting today where we specifically spread all the chairs apart and made sure that there was at least 3 or 4 feet between each chair. And as soon as they sat down, they started moving the chairs closer together again. And, you know, that's just the way people are here. So I suspect the only way to do this is by the rather draconian measures of putting a state of emergency in place, because we have to be really serious about social distancing and cleanliness and hand washing and all the rest of it. But social distancing is critical. I suspect that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Health are looking seriously at introducing those measures, especially after St. Lucia and Jamaica seem to be moving in that direction as well. And, you know, we heard today that the UK was also insisting that everybody stayed at home. I think they actually put it into practice, telling everybody to stay at home. Personally, I'm quarantining myself in one of my hotel rooms for the next 14 days. All our guests are pretty well left today. We've got about 4 or 5 rooms left, so I'm just going to stick myself in a hotel room and see what happens over the next 14 days.
We have a caller on the line. Caller, good evening, and thanks for your patience. Welcome.
Good night. I have a question on social distancing.
Sure.
I noticed that most of the buses travel with 4 people. Good night. My question is on social distancing. I noticed that the buses have 4 passengers in the bus in each row. How would that relate to us in terms of social distancing?
Thank you. Dr. Bedassi, you'd like to take that?
Sure. So the virus itself in the body can actually depart the body. For example, by coughing, by exhaling as an example, as well, even through normal breathing, coughing, sneezing as well. And the projection of these viral particles are usually in the form of a droplet. And this droplet is a combination of body mucus as well as some water vapor as well. Now, while we may cough at different intensities or sneeze, etc., the range for droplets in the environment is around 6 feet, the maximum range that is. So when we're locating and positioning ourselves, whether in a bus or whether in a home or even an office location or general public, that 6 feet observation is out of respect for you can potentially be exposed to droplets that contain the viruses. And that idea is essentially one of the fundamental principles for us to adopt, principally as we locate ourselves in whatever sphere that we conduct our day-to-day activities.
Good. We have another call on the line. Caller, good evening. It's great to have you with us.
Hello?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
There is a revelation that says that the disease is airborne. Is it really true, confirm or deny?
So I have seen reports that suggest that COVID-19 is airborne. As far as the information we have on COVID-19, it's a respiratory droplet-borne infection itself. Now, we have airborne viruses. Measles, for example, is airborne. Chickenpox. And these are highly contagious viruses as well. But for COVID-19, the main mode of transmission is that of a respiratory droplet.
And we have Dr. Martin, who said the science says, and the science said, but we've heard, as the caller just highlighted, every day apparently the science seems to be suggesting one way or another. Some people have been saying, for instance, with the treatment that you don't take ibuprofen. But Dr. Martin was saying that was like a case study. We'll get back to that, but we have a call on the line. Caller, good evening.
Yeah, good night to you, Odette, and your guest. Now, a caller referred to one of the points I was going to talk about, and that is transportation, the transportation mode. Now, I think people, the traveling public, are put at a great disadvantage, especially if they have to work. I myself on Friday felt compromised because I was frank with I had to go to town because there are certain basic things I need. I don't have my own transportation. And I think we need to address that quickly because we could be creating a situation that we will live to regret. So the issue of the transportation, I know it's very difficult, but we need to do something immediately. And the other thing about it is that in Dominica, for instance, in trying to help the people to cooperate, they have refilled standpipes and also have attendants, according to the news, where the attendants have soap to give the people to wash and explain to them the necessity. We have been saying things that we're doing, but there's no follow-up, there's no assistance, no incentive for people to do things. And the last point is that we have sent the children home from school more than a week ago. But it was just as if we didn't send them because on Friday again, and I understand today based on one of your announcers, that the children are straying all over the place. And we need to protect our children. We need to really, I've been calling for some time ago that we need to take a more decisive action. And one of your guests did mention that it's still things are not getting to people because people don't. I'll just say finally, most people do not seek independent first-hand information. Most people in Grenada rely on second-hand information, and that's one of the biggest problems. Even politicians haven't really caught on to that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, caller, for the contribution. And at the GBN, we take our responsibility, like I have reiterated for the last couple of weeks, and forever and always. We take our responsibility very seriously. And one of the things we did today to try and deal with the vacuum that has been left with the early closure of school was to start the GBN homeschool. Dr. Bedasi, were you able to look at the mathematical calculations today?
I did have. I brought back some quite traumatic memories from
What was the value of 4 today?
Oh boy.
I learned the face value of 4. I want to thank the expert team. We have 3 gentlemen who did a fantastic job. And for those of you who were not able to put your children in front of the television between 10 and 12 today, we are saying to you, don't blame the government, don't blame anybody. GBN has launched its homeschool program. Very interesting. They dealt with mathematics today. I was trying to do some work, but I was glued to what they were. You said it brought back traumatic memories. I was like, did they teach me what was the face value of 4, or was I just playing the fool in the class? I would never forget the face value of 4 today, Mr. Alexander and Mr. Nivian Cox. And there's another gentleman, Mr. Gaspard. Thank you guys so much. To let the parents know, homeschool is on. Tomorrow they're dealing with some language arts, and they'll also be dealing with civics. And throughout the week it's going to be interesting. We are giving away prizes. GBN Homeschool is a place to be. I understand we have another caller on the line. Caller, good evening.
Hello, good evening. I'm calling concerning the sanitation for the hand washing and carrying out the gloves. I realized, I observed that today at St. George's that people use the cell phone on the gloves. You have to teach people how to do the cell phone, the gloves, the handling of money, and all that stuff like that. So we need a little more information, the way to wash our hands, especially touching the pipette, the door locks, and using public transportation, washrooms, and things like that, please. Give us a little more information. We should care about yourself, because we're lacking knowledge when it comes to them things.
Thank you so much. And some people have been questioning whether it's an exercise in futility wearing these gloves. What is your take on that, Dr. Badassi?
So hygiene is part of the effective response to COVID-19. Consider all surfaces to potentially be exposed to the virus. And these surfaces include your table, your chair, your doorknob, the money. Those surfaces can potentially carry the virus, and as such, if you know you have been in contact with those surfaces, wash your hands and avoid your hands from reaching the vicinity of your face as well. Now, with regards to gloves, gloves is one measure, but mainly for healthcare providers, because a glove is another surface that can be contaminated, just like your hands as well. So we tend to associate more gloves in terms of how healthcare workers are working with patients that are shedding the virus. By maintaining hygiene through regularly washing your hands and ensuring that you prevent those hands from getting close to your face, that is sufficient for the general public to observe. But I want to make the point, though, as we think about how the government is responding, no legislation, no state of emergency, no protocols will change the way people wash their hands. Essentially, you will wash your hands based on your own behavior. Your decision to wash your hands is your decision, regardless of whether the law requires you to wash your hands or not. So it's a matter of having that personal responsibility to apply these measures as well.
But you think the glove is effective because it's like your hand, you're putting the gloves on, but yet you will be touching the surface and touching your cell phone, put the cell phone close to your ear, and it touches your face, which are we saying to, so you think the glove is probably...
It's not effective for the general public. Okay. The glove is another surface that can be contaminated.
Good. We have another call on the line. Caller, good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Campbell, and good afternoon to the gentleman and to the person or the personnel. I'm satisfied that we are getting a lot of information from the health providers, and I'm satisfied, and I show that the persons in the state, we the citizens, are not adhering to a lot of the advice that is being given. And then we come back and blame. For instance, the gentleman I just spoke before and blaming the children that are not at the closing of the schools and whatnot, and the children. What do you want the government to do? If the government has kept them in school, you have said something. The government closed the school. It's us, the parents, that have to make sure that your children adhere to the rules. You don't expect government to have a policing all over to the children. Our people are not adhering to the information that is being given, and in some cases we have a lot of distorted information. Last night there was a rumor all over that a plane helicopter coming to spray, right, for the disease. I mean, too much distorted information is going across, and we're not listening, and we're not acting on what should be acted, and then we blame the state.
Thank you so much for that contribution. Dr. Badassi, you wanted to weigh in on that?
Well, if someone asks me what is the responsibility of the public or the person in response to COVID-19, I believe one of your first responsibilities is actually to source the correct information.
Source the correct information.
And that includes the government website, the Ministry of Health, the World Health Organization. That will be your primary source in order to respond effectively.
We have another call on the line. Caller, good evening and welcome.
Hello?
Yes, please go right ahead.
Good afternoon. I've heard a lot of people panicking about that disease. How many people is infected in Grenada right now with the disease? For people to be panicking over that disease, which is a universal something, okay? Now, the best thing the government could have done was to shut down the airport. Now, if we have one person infected in Grenada, which it can be more, we're supposed to quarantine this person and see that we can have more of this disease in Grenada. But all this panicking and all this old talk, as the gentleman just said, the gentleman before, he's a big stone. This government thing and government thing, man, start that. This is a worldwide something. Let's pray for each other and try to protect Grenada. The government did the best thing by shutting the airport down. And if there is a complaint in Grenada, we are going to work at it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just put my hand on my face. I apologize to myself, and I'll try to obey the protocols. It is difficult not to put your hand and not to sometimes just be leaning on your face. Things are changing. Someone in the United States who is following the program online has just sent a link from CNBC, and I'm wondering, should I read this? But CNBC seems to be an authentic source. The WHO considers airborne precautions for medical staff after study shows coronavirus can survive in the air. We were talking about that earlier, but we're just saying we'd park that one there for the time being until more research can be done and we could really see what the WHO is saying. But I can say the WHO, the World Health Organization, is considering airborne precautions for medical staff after a new study showed the coronavirus can survive in the air in some settings. The virus is transmitted through droplets or little bits of liquid, mostly through sneezing, etc. And the WHO, Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove, head of its Emerging Disease and Zoonosis Unit, told reporters during a virtual news conference today, when you do an aerosol generating procedure like a medical care facility, you have the possibility to what we call aerosolize these particles, which means they can stay in the air a little bit longer. We have another call on the line. Caller, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Quickly, a lot of general advice is being given, but I think we need some more specific protocols. For instance, in the case of public transportation, we should have something given to the bus drivers. For instance, if everybody opens the door of the bus, I mean, this makes it very, very difficult. You should have protocols that say, for instance, only the conductor opens the door. I went to Western Union a couple of days ago. Everybody's opening that door, and the security guard is sitting there. There should be a protocol that says only the guard opens the door. So simple things like that, if we break them down, it will help. So it's one thing to say, wash your hands, be careful, but these specifics. Are we going to close barbershops and salons? If they're going to remain open, we should give them specific little protocols. So we need to break them down.
Thank you so much, caller. And I'm certain, Dr. Badassi, you said that you've been working closely with the Ministry of Health, and this kind of feedback will be brought back to the committee so that those can be assessed. It seems as though we've left languishing, but we're getting ready to close. It is just that for the last couple of weeks, because the panel was so packed and the discussion was just going, we were unable to take many calls. I think I hear the phone ringing again. Can we take another call? Caller, good evening. Caller, good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Greetings to you and your panel there. Listen, as a person with disability in this here country, I'm concerned, and therefore I ask the question, how much of this information relative to the COVID-19, which is being disseminated, reaches the people of this here country, the population excess of 5,000, people with hearing disability or impairment. Has any provision been made so that information can get out to these people?
That's a very useful question. One of the things I know we can say, Dr. Bedassi, is that we've seen at the press conferences that we have officials who have been doing the sign language, and I think that's one step, and it's something that the government will continue to consider.
I know the government has been putting, in addition to press conferences and information, a lot of flyers, a lot of posters trying to illustrate the behaviors that we would like populations to actually mimic as well at the same time. So there are different modalities of actually sharing information, but certainly managing the information flow for differently able as well is also part of the solution.
Good. And we have another call on the line. We may have to make this the final call of the evening. Caller, good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Campbell, and your panel. Something I've been looking at for the longest while, and now I think it is more important that we pay attention to it, is that the health personnel, the people who work in health, like the general hospital, the health centers, and things like that. Now the police have a right to walk the street with his uniform. The security have a right to do that. That's what they implied. But I've seen in nurses and like the cooks and the different people in the hospital, they are on the public transport with their uniform. They come out in the hospital, they come to the market. They come from the market, they go up to the work. So I think we have to look into this very carefully. I think these people should have a place they go to the hospital with their ordinary clothes, change your clothes, do your work, change your clothes, go back on the street. I think that would help.
Thank you so much. Dr. Bedassi, we heard that it's not the same caller, but the same issue being highlighted to Dr. Martin this morning, and he said they'd look into it. What are your thoughts here?
Well, healthcare workers deal with many diseases. When healthcare workers are responding to communicable contagious diseases such as infection control, these healthcare workers are actually using personal protective equipment as well. So while a lot of our patients are chronic disease patients, where we can actually have no opportunity or viability for communicating diseases, for infectious diseases, however, the standard protocol is to use these types of personal protective equipment, which will protect not only the worker themselves, but that equipment is then discarded to avoid its exposure onto the general public.
Thank you so much. And that's where we bring the curtains down almost on tonight's Beyond the Headlines program. We just want to cross for closing comments to Mr. Russ Fielding, the Vice President of the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association. Russ, your closing thoughts tonight.
Yeah, I'm just very interested in a lot of your callers that had comments to make. And I think one thing that we really need to persuade people to do is not listen to a lot of the bacchanal that goes on. A lot of the social media stuff that's out there is just rubbish and garbage. We need to be very careful that we only look at information that comes from a reliable source, like the Ministry of Health or the Government of Grenada. And because I had some of my staff come up to me today and said, if you can hold your breath for 10 seconds, you haven't got COVID. I mean, it's just nonsense. So we need to make sure that we get that message across. And on the case of the airborne situation, I just saw that there was a study done by the New England Journal of Medicine, and maybe the doctor would like to have a look at that, because it does say there is a possibility of airborne disease, but it's pretty remote according to their study. But not being a scientist of that sort of, it's quite a complicated website report. And finally, I think the message has to be to everybody out there: keep clean, keep safe, wash your hands, and keep the distance. If we do that, we'll keep the number of cases to a minimum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Russ. And we'd also like to say a very special thank you to the President of the GHTA, Mr. Jerry Rappaport, who joined us earlier in the program. In studio, we've had Dr. Satish Bidasi of St. George's University. He is a professor of public health and preventive medicine. Dr. Bidasi, we thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to dissect the issue with us. And we'd like to thank all of the persons who have contributed to make tonight's program a success. And to you, our listeners and viewers, we want to say a special thank you. But I have a signal from Dr. Bidasi that there is one point he wants to ensure that he leaves with the public.
Thank you very much, and pleasant good night to everyone, and do keep well. The point I would like to raise is that there's a lot that we know about COVID-19, and there's a lot that we do not know. And as we progress through this experience, we will continue to learn more and more. But what we do know is that each and every one of us, we are at risk. And one of the main symptoms of COVID-19 is no symptoms. Now, while the common symptoms include fever, cough, difficulty breathing, etc., no symptoms is also quite common. That suggests to each and every one of us that we can potentially be exposed and we can potentially be infected as well. And that requires for us individually to pay attention to our own health and also to protect the health of those around us as well. Keep well, guys, and have a good night.
Thank you so much, Dr. Satish Bidasi. And to just let our viewers and listeners know that we were hoping to dissect some of the issues raised by Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Dr. Keith Mitchell, in his national address on Friday. And we had invited someone from the government to break this down, especially since we had the two representatives from the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association, but the government was unable to facilitate our request to have someone on. And also, just to remind our viewers and listeners that the GBN Homeschool has been launched. It is between 10 and 12 on GBN television. And for those of you who have access to the internet, you can view it on the GBN Facebook page and the GBN YouTube channel. It is something to keep the children busy with, and I have to say it is no wishy-washy program. I was glued to that television today, and I'm certain that you will find it very intriguing. There will be officials from the Coding Academy with us. At some point this week, we will be doing some civics. Members from the Royal Grenada Police Force will be in talking a child's language on civics. It is something that I learned a lot from in school, and we've been talking about the need to return civics. GBN is breaking barriers and reaching places that you have been calling for us to reach. So please don't miss that opportunity. We could keep blaming. GBN is acting. And so this is where we close off tonight's program again. Thank you so much for going the distance with us. I'm Odette Campbell. I'll see you again next week, Lord's willing.